A sketch of the life of Francis Lee and family, at Wilmington, Clinton County, Ohio, on June 30, 1811, Francis Lee was born. He was one of the family of 8 children, son of Samuel Lee, grandson of William Lee. Of his boyhood days we have no record, but in 1832, when he was 21 years old, he and Jane Vale Johnson, who afterwards became his wife, joined the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Randolph County, Indiana. Soon after joining the church, they with others, were driven to the state of Missouri, where on October 24, 1835, Francis Lee and Jane Vale Johnson were married. At Liberty, Clay County, Missouri, near famous Liberty Jail, their eldest child, William Henry Lee, was born, August 9, 1836. From Liberty they went with other persecuted saints to far west, Caldwell County, where on April 25, 1838, Electra Jane Lee Edwards was born. Persecution was then raging heavily against the saints, and on October 27 of this year the extermination order of Governor Boggs was issued. In the depths of one of the most severe winters ever known there, 14,000 souls, among them Grandfather Lee and family, were driven from their homes. They found refuge in Adams County, Illinois, at a little town called Payson. Here 2 other boys were added to the family, Samuel Marion, born January 28, 1840, and John Nelson, born November 17, 1841. In the fall of 1843 the family was located at Nauvoo, the beautiful city of the saints, and here George Washington Lee was born, April 28, 1844. Jane Vale Johnson and Francis Lee took out their endowments in the Nauvoo Temple on January 22, 1846. The following June, grandfather witnessed the martyrdom of the prophet and his brother. Early in January 1846, at a council meeting held in the temple, it was decided to leave Illinois, and on February 4, the saints began crossing the Mississippi River on their journey westward. The saints left in companies, and on June 14, 1846, grandfather with 225 others arrived at the Missouri River, where a large ferryboat was built. Soon after the saints began crossing the river. Next we find the family located in Jamestown, Andrew County, Missouri, and on November 13, 1846, Francis Columbus Lee was born, and on December 19, 1848, Jacob Edward was born. Early in 1850, they reached the Platte River at a place called Platteville, where they crossed, and on June 13, they took up their march again. That very night cholera broke out in their camp. Several of them died, among them Jacob Edward Lee. They were buried on the banks of the Platte River. While camped at the Missouri River, the family was joined by great-grandfather Samuel Lee. He had left his company and started to walk to the California gold fields, but here he joined with the rest of them and crossed the plains with his son in the company of James Pace and David Bennett. Salt Lake City was reached on September 17, 1850, and on the 26th of this month they located to Tooele. This was their home for several years. On December 4 of this year, Mary Eliza Lee Atchison was born. The next event of importance was the baptism of great-grandfather Samuel Lee in the spring of 1851. Tooele was the birthplace of 3 other children: Milton Lafayette, born February 4, 1853, Arthur Orson on June 27, 1856, and Louisa Juliet, born January 12, 1859. After 11 years' residence in Tooele, grandfather Lee's name was first on the list of names called to settle the Dixie Country. Their first home was at Santa Clara. In 1863 the youngest of the family died and was buried at St. George, Utah. Early in 1864 they moved to St. George, but their stay was short, for in 2 weeks they answered a call to settle anew, and then, Indian Territory. On May 4, 1864 they reached Panica. Samuel F. Lee, a nephew of grandfather's, accompanied them. In 1864, the old fort was built on a lot now owned by Frank Edwards. Electra Jane Lee had married George W. Edwards before coming to Panica, and William H. Edwards has the distinction of being the first white child born in Lincoln County, Nevada, his birthplace being Clover Valley, and Frank Edwards was the first white child born at Panica. The first summer of their sojourn here, the lots now owned by Aunts Mary and Jane Lee were broken up and planted. Potatoes, corn, and about 30 bushels of wheat were harvested that fall. This wheat, which was thrashed by hand, was taken to the Parowan mill by John W. Lee and was the first flour to be had since the Lee settled in Panica. The Indians were a great hindrance to the settlers. On one occasion Grandmother Lee was forced to defend herself and 3 children from several treacherous red men. Several of them were killed before peace was again enjoyed in the little fort. Only 2 years did Grandfather survive in his new home, for on July 7, 1866, he passed away, and after 9 years of hard work and heroic endurance, Grandmother followed him July 10, 1875. With the death of Electra Jane Lee Edwards, 8 years ago, passed the last member of the family of Francis and Jane V. Lee, but a numerous posterity lives to perpetuate their sacred memory.